Qual è secondo te il film che ha incassato di più nella storia del cinema? Avatar. Peraltro prodotto da un personaggio che si chiama Jon Landau, come si pronuncerebbe in italiano, che ha prodotto anche il terzo film che ha incassato di più nella storia del cinema, che è Titanic. Ecco, in questo 4 chiacchiere in arrivo ho avuto l'occasione di parlare proprio con lui, la persona che è stata al fianco di Cameron per tutti questi anni, che ha dato un dietro le quinte, secondo me straordinario, non solo su come si produce un film, ma anche su come si fa a organizzare un progetto estremamente complesso e avere una visione di lungo periodo. E ci sono un sacco di aneddoti che non ti voglio spoilerare, ma si va da come hanno prodotto la tecnologia per riuscire a sviluppare questo sequel, che ci ha messo 13 anni, 13 anni da quando uscì il primo Avatar, a tutta la logica dei prossimi sequel, alla modalità di scrittura di Cameron che si presenta con 1500 pagine di note, una storia pazzesca. E lo faccio gustare. Jon Landau. Alive. Jon, I'm so happy to meet you. We did it. Where are you at the moment?
I am coming to you from Sao Paulo, Brazil.
Oh, wow. Gosh, what are you doing? It's like the World Avatar 2 tour or something like that?
It's part of it. It's the start of it. We're going to Comic-Con Brazil tomorrow. And it's one of the biggest Comic-Cons in the world. Zoe Saldana and I are here. And we're going to be sharing with everybody a little bit of footage. Because to me, I don't want to sell the movie. I want to let the scenes, I want to let the imagery sell the movie.
That's amazing. I think I saw a clip of Zoe. She was very emotional after some, I don't know, not the premiere. It was like a highlights.
No, I just screened the whole movie for Zoe, Sigourney Weaver, Sam Worthington, Stephen Lang, just on Monday. And
I see.
And they were an emotional wreck. And I think, I think people think of Avatar as, just about the world, but it's really about the characters and it's really about the emotional connection. And in many ways, this movie is much more emotional than even the first Avatar.
That's really interesting. I think this is a fantastic point, Jon, that you just did. Is I think some people watch a movie like Avatar and think, all right, a lot of technology, digital effects, blah, blah, blah. The truth is that when you have this level of success, it means that there is also a very good story there. It's not only, you can't get any result just with technology. So I'm really curious to see the second Avatar, and but the story is key.
The story is absolutely key. And I think what's important when you have a story, it's also that the story is about something larger than just a plot. To me, I talk about theme a lot. The theme is what you leave the theater with, but you leave the plot at the theater. And if we can get people to feel something, and that to me is the theme, then you've really done something. And if you think about it, people listen to music over and over again because they get something out of it thematically. If we can do that same thing on film, then we've really done something special.
And by the way, the music and also the audio, the sounds specific, I think, for Avatar, I'm really curious about it. I mean, what kind of team, what kind of skills do you need to create that kind of audio environment?
I'm so glad that you raised that, because people don't realize that oftentimes, that the auditory experience in the theater is part of what immerses you into the world of the movie. And our sound designer, Chris Boyce, couldn't go just out into the streets of the world and record sounds that play in the movie. He had to design sounds for the Tulkun, the whale-like creature of the movie, for the Elus, another creature, for the skimwing. What does a Navi bow sound like? Or even the guns that we create. These are new and unique to our world. And then on top of that, I always say that music is the heartbeat of a movie. And Simon Franklin, who was a longtime collaborator with James Horner, who did the score in the first movie, who tragically passed away. Simon came in and has held true to the sensibility that James created on the first film, but has done it with his own emotional essence. And the themes that he has woven into this movie, that are introduced at the beginning of the film, you feel again at the end, and it all feels connected. And that's one of the really, Simon has been a gift to us. And Simon and Chris, we just finished our mix last week and finally got to sit and watch the movie all completed over the weekend. And sound is a huge part of it.
I'm always amazed by the magic of sound in a movie. And I give you this example. I do videos, a lot of videos on social media. And one day, a friend of mine, an Italian friend of mine, I live in UK, by the way. And then this friend is a very famous musician in Italy. And so he sent me a clip of a video of mine with his music, like proper good music, instead of my crappy music that, the stock music pre-made, you just put it on YouTube. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. I mean, this is a completely different piece of content, and you just change the music. And the impact is insane. So I wonder, how do you go to create something so new, and what kind of work behind the scenes you did to prepare? I mean, you do the first meeting, and what do you say? Like, we need music, okay, but what?
But again, music is a part of what we do from the beginning of the process. It's not an afterthought.
I see.
So, as we went into doing the Avatar sequels, first of all, there's indigenous music. The clans of the Na'vis have their own music, and that was the first music for the sequels that we started to work on. That rhythm, that felt culturally right. Because if we want people to believe that they exist, it's more than just a face. It's their whole embodiment, from costumes to music. So Simon Franklin came in and started working with Jim right away on that. And then when we talked to James Horner on the first movie, again, a very important conversation is this first one, where you establish what the expectations are. Yes, we wanted a classic orchestral score, but we also wanted a uniqueness of the Na'vi that could be felt in the score. So if you listen to the score, we have drums, we have other instruments that you might never have heard in scores, and we have vocals. We have quite a few vocals, not in a language where you're understanding what they say, but they're in Na'vi. They're chanting like a culture would, and that is part of the fabric of the films.
Amazing. And it's the same level. Amazing for me is to see. By the way, I watched the trailer of the movie, and I thought, wow, I have to watch this movie in a theater. I can't watch it, on my phone like that. This is something I have to watch in an immerse experience, because there are so many details, even just from the trailer, details. And the idea that you guys built an entire world from scratch, to me, is mind-blowing. I don't know how is possible. So take us behind the scenes of this. Did you, let's say, keep some I don't know, ocean? You went to film in an ocean, and then you have added digital stuff, or the forest. How did it work to recreate this world?
Well, first of all, our goal was to create the ultimate cinematic experience. As you said, it's something that has to be seen on the big screen. And to do that, we needed to ground it in something that would be believable. So we went out and we did rehearsals in the rainforest. We went out and did tests in the oceans. But at the end of the day, there is zero live action water for the scenes that you saw.
Really?
It was all computer generated, but it's grounded in the physics of real water. People would say to us, "Oh, you don't need to shoot in real water. You could fake the swimming." And we said, "Yes, but you're faking the swimming." And we wanted everything to be performance driven. So we trained our cast on how to breath hold, because they had to do scenes underwater, not on scuba tanks, but where they were holding their breath, but they needed to emote a performance. And then after they trained with Kirk Crack and surprised themselves at how long they could hold their breath for, we went to Hawaii. And on the first movie, we just rehearsed in the rainforest because that's all the movie's called for. On the sequels, we rehearsed both in the rainforest and in the oceans. And we took the cast on what could possibly be the most Pandoran-like ocean experience one could have here on Earth. We went on a night dive where we were sitting on the bottom of the dark waters, and out of the darkness came giant manta rays. And they looked like Pandoran creatures, their mouths agape, their wings flapping, and they swam over us, and the cast was able to reach up and touch their bellies. And it was that experience that enabled them when they came back to give us a performance in a tank where we're capturing their performance, where those creatures aren't really there, where they could remember what that feeling was like. And then our production designers and our costume designers had to not go to a store and buy a prop. They had to manufacture it. They had to design vehicles. They had to design a reef village where the houses are hanging suspended from giant mangrove trees, and everything is connected because we wanted to reinforce this idea of connection. So what you saw, every blade of grass is designed and then has to be realized by Weta FX. When we made the first Avatar, I told people that we needed to be photographic and we didn't need to be photoreal because you could not tell me what was real on Pandora. On this movie, we have human characters interacting with CG characters and in CG worlds and back and forth. We had to raise the bar. We had to raise the bar to something that was truly photoreal for everything we did.
Crazy. That's crazy. Uh, Also, there was a lot of talking, of course, about technology, and technology developed for exactly to shoot in these conditions, cameras, and what do you think, in your opinion, was the best achievement from a technological point of view until this moment?
I'll probably surprise you, with this answer. On the first movie, we did a single standard definition camera to record the facial performances of the actors.
Right.
On this movie, we used 2 high definition cameras. And we were now getting enough data that we were not just interpreting what the skin did, but Weta FX was able to drive it by the muscles underneath the skin, which gives us a much higher fidelity performance. On top of that, we wanted to give our cast, when they were playing scenes with characters that were 9 foot tall and they would maybe only be 6 feet tall, we didn't want them to follow a tennis ball around. So you've probably seen a sporting event, a football event, and they have these cameras that fly over the stadiums.
Yeah.
We took that same idea, but we replaced the camera with a monitor and a speaker. And instead of using the system at a giant stadium, we used it on our set, and we had it move around as if they were the character that wasn't there. And the actor would look on the monitor and see Stephen Lang and hear him giving a performance, and they could react to that, so their performance was truer.
I see. And the performance in this way, I would say, even if they are all great actors and great actors, and they can perform in any condition, but I would argue that the level of performance will improve if they have a reaction to.
If they're just playing to a tennis ball,
Yeah.
they're not getting anything, and they can't be spontaneous. They can't change. It's there. But with the monitor and it's moving, the whole cable system would move it where the CG character was supposed to go, and they could track with it. They could react to it. They could act to it. What we try to do throughout the process is create the most director-actor centric process there can be. That's what we do with all of our performance capture. We don't, if you think about it, when you're doing performance capture, you're not lighting a set. You're not waiting for the rain to go away. it's all about the acting in that moment. And that's one of the things that Jim really enjoys about the process.
I was also wondering if we go about the production of something so ambitious. I don't know how to define it, but it's really like above my pay grade. I don't know. I can't really even.
My favorite too.
Like you think, wow, we gotta create a new world, and we'll need new technologies and new thinking, the different way of thinking. So first, when you were talking, I was thinking, wow, basically you already have created the metaverse. Zuckerberg is trying to create the metaverse. You already did it, so that's something to think about. But will you use the infrastructure that you have built to shoot this movie and the sequels? Also, like, that Amazon has, I don't know, AWS. So it's an infrastructure, and then they rent the infrastructure out. So will you use this infrastructure as something that other producers will be able to use, or is just something that is part of your production and that's it?
No, we want the tools to become ubiquitous. We want more and more people to use the tools that we're developing. What we want to protect is our IP, our intellectual property. But we use these same tech tools to create the ride at Pandora, the world of Avatar, which is still the top-rated ride down in Disney World. We use these tools. We used a subset of our tools and let the most recent Jungle Book sequel use them. So we want other people to use these tools to democratize them and to continue to make them better.
I see. What about AI? In my sector, tech sector, a lot of people talk about artificial intelligence. Has been used in this movie. Was some kind of meaning for using AI in some kind of sector or not?
Not. We use deep learning technology,
Right.
where Weta FX really studied what the actors did and created a deep learning algorithm that sort of then became its own AI for that part of the process. For me though, when people think of AI, it's usually about the system being able to make choices. And we want the actors' choices. We want the
Right.
director's choices. So this deep learning side of things that creates a back end AI that can help get us closer to recreating those performances is very useful.
How long, John, did it take to go from the idea, say, all right, sequel, we're gonna do the sequel? Because I remember, like, long time ago, James Cameron said, we will do a sequel, but it was like, I don't know, 2010 maybe. I know it was a long time ago. How long did it take to go from idea to, let's say, green light, and then finishing the production and say, all right, we done, we good?
So I'm going to break it up into a couple different sections. The idea came to us, basically right around finishing the first Avatar. And like, if this thing works, because we didn't know if it would work, there are more stories left to tell in this world. When the movie had the success, Jim in particular needed time to get away from the world of Avatar. He built a deep submersible and dove to the Marianas Trench. We re-released Titanic, its 15th anniversary for 3D, and it really wasn't until 2012, so a little more than 2 years after the movie came out, that Jim really sat down and started coming up with his story ideas. He spent about a year doing that, and he ended up with 1,500 pages of story notes, and realized at that point that it was more than one movie to tell. And because of that, realized that we would need to bring in teams of writers to work with Jim. So we hired 3 different teams of writers, each to work with Jim on different movies. And they went into a writer's room and spent 6 months in 2013, the last 6 months, taking Jim's notes and breaking them down into what became the 4 sequels. And it was only after they did that breakdown that we then assigned the writers the different scripts, because we got to know them, we got to see what their strengths were. So then we're into 2014, and then it took a couple years to get those scripts to a point where Jim was happy, because we didn't need to just do one script. We needed 4 scripts. It was real, but it was important for us that number one, that our actors knew where their characters were going, that our design teams knew the breadth and scope of what we were going to ask of them, and that took time. So that took, until really we had scripts at the end of 2016, and we went into production in 2017.
You know what, John? To me, it's so incredible to think in such a long term, because I'm used to with social media speed. I went to shoot an interview today and this morning, and this afternoon the interview is up, is already edited, like basic editing, of course. And the idea of producing something that I start and then I'll see the result in 8 years, 10 years, is also difficult to understand, but also I think how that thing will be relevant in 10 years. Maybe it's not relevant anymore, So how do you deal with the cultural moment, and the world maybe is in a different place, and how can you predict the future on this? How do you deal with that?
Well, number one, the wait is the hardest part for me, because to
Right.
me, what I enjoy most about making a movie is when I get to go into a theater with an audience. And while they're watching the screen, I'm watching the audience, because in fact, they are the real art. But what you do is you try and come up with universal themes that are timeless. If we, because we know it's going to take long, so we
Right.
don't want to do something about the 2022 elections in Italy, because
Yeah.
by the time the movie comes out,
But that would be a great series.
yeah,
So that would be a fantastic movie.
because by the time the movie comes out, it'll be past. But when you look at what Jim's been able to do in his scripts, they're timeless stories. So
Yeah.
we're telling the story about a family, and that's a timeless story. And we're not just telling it from the parents' perspective. We're also telling it from teenagers' perspective. Teenagers who are struggling to find their place in life, to find their own identity, to understand what is their purpose in life. Teenagers have been struggling with that for decades. That's not something new today. So when you set out on these long things, you have to write in these very universal concepts.
I like I have to think more in this way, John. Timeless stories that they will be relevant in the long term. I was also wondering, John, how do you deal now and also in the past with the pressure of you did Titanic, huge success, then produced Avatar, amazing success, and now I mean everyone are waiting for, like, okay, John, that has to be even better, and you think, wow, of course you did your best, you and Jim, you did your best, and so on. But how do you deal with this incredible level of expectation now that every time you do something is there?
Well, look, I think number one, we don't feel the external pressure. We feel the internal pressure. It's pressure we put on ourselves. It's not about topping this or topping that. It's about making this content reach an audience and then respond to it in a way that at least meets and hopefully exceeds their expectations. If you want to really talk about life's pressures, is I want my 2 kids, my 2 sons, to be good people. Those are life's pressures. Making
Yes.
a movie, that's something different.
Is it true, John, that when you and Jim went first to propose Avatar, 20th Century Fox was not so like convinced immediately, or is just a legend? Because if you came to me after Titanic and say, Monty, I want to go with a new movie, I would have said, you go for it, no matter what, you know, you already proved.
Yeah, but Monty, let me pitch it to you a different way, right?
Right.
And this is I'm pitching it to you through the lens that a studio executive might see this movie. Hey,
Right.
Monty, you want to do a movie about blue people that have tails on a planet, and it's like it's got this really big environmental theme.
I don't know, John. I'll
All
let
right.
you know. I'll let you know.
So we got them there, and they were great partners, you know, on the first film. And I got to tell you right now, you know, our relationship with Disney has been phenomenal. You know, they came in. We had a relationship with them before because of the theme park that we did with them, but they have embraced Avatar, you know, as if it's always part of the Disney family. And they have brought the might of the Walt Disney Company to help support us, and we are very grateful for that.
What about Italy, John? Do you have any story about Italy connected with Avatar or Titanic? Did they react like everyone else, or we Italians, we always like be weird in our reaction?
Well, first of all, we have an Italian who's a very integral part of our crew, Marco Revenant. He is at Weta FX. He has built and is responsible for every one of the thousands of assets that are in the movie, and responsible in a creative way, not in a clerical way. So you know, there's a little bit of Italy in it. That's a big part of our movie here. But I think that, you know, Italy, my experience has been so much about familia, family, and you know, as we go and we embark on the Avatar sequel, it's about family, and I think
I
that's
see.
something that's going to play really well to, you know, the Italian, you know, cinema goer. The cinema goers certainly welcomed us with Avatar and with Titanic, which we're very excited about. But I think now this one even hits home more to something that is very important to the Italian culture.
Definitely, it will resonate with Italian audience, I'm sure. I have to let you know, John, a final question that I had for you was about producing this level of movies. What are the most difficult parts when you have to manage a production of large-scale movies like that in a long time frame? What are the most difficult things to track, to monitor, to how you keep together everything?
I think the hardest part is making everybody on the crew feel like you see them. The Navi have an expression, Inate Kameya, I see you. And I stand here on the shoulders of hundreds of other people. And as we go through a process, I want to know about their families. I want to know what situations they're going in. How do we make it better for them? And I've gone through movies that take long periods of times. Oftentimes we have new people who haven't, and that's a very different situation. Movies usually last 6 weeks, 12 weeks, maybe 20 weeks. We ask people to commit to us for years, and to make sure that they feel recognized, not just as a worker, but as a person. That to me is paramount.
It's I mean it's the hard part that makes the biggest difference, definitely. John, thank you so much. It was a huge pleasure. Avatar: The Way of the Water, can't wait to see it, and good luck for everything.
Thank you. Have a great holiday season.